Hello everyone, welcome back to Chill Deal Trades, where I give you the insight of both the technical and fundamentals of companies so we can all make some money. Today's video we're going to be covering plug, which is power plug, or plug power, one of the ways, but we're going to dive into the charts to see if the stock can go higher. If you like anything in the video, please like and subscribe, and I want to know in the comments, do you think it's going higher? Do you think it's headed lower? So let's just start off right now. Okay, so what we see with power plug, obviously we had a crazy run in this name leading up into February when all the tech companies basically peaked out, or anything in that general sector of high growth peaked out, and we've had this really gnarly decline essentially from February. And so what we see is we see it bottom back in the middle of May when all of tech bottomed, and we've kind of been in an uptrend and kind of gone sideways more recently. And so today we saw a really big move in the market of about 14%, and I think we're at a decision point for plug moving forward. And so some of the positives we see is this green line right here is a 200-day EMA. So this kind of weights the more recent price action. And what we see is today actually broke above the 200. So that's really positive, and that could potentially show a trend change for this stock in the big picture. We also see that we broke above this downward trend line back at the end of May. And since then, we've kind of been in this sideways consolidation. And when we zoom out, we also see, somewhat of a sideways consolidation before the big move prior. And so often what happens in history or in past price rhymes with what happens in the future. And that's what we saw was this sideways action until today when they released their earnings. And people obviously interpret it really positively for the company, and so we saw really big volume come in. We look at the volume. The last time we had big volume was actually on when it hit the low back in mid-May, and we didn't have as much volume until way back kind of when the stock initially broke up. So I think for tomorrow, what you're going to really want to look at the beginning of the day is if we see big volume start to come in early. The first hour of the day we're going to need volume, and the reason we're going to need volume is back on June 8th is when we hit the most recent high for the stock in terms of after the correction. And today we basically tapped or got really close to testing that top again. And again, when we look back in history, this trend line right here, what we see with this trend line is that this was an area of resistance all through history. So back in the consolidation, it was an important part of support. When it broke below, it became a really big part of resistance, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing this price point be a big area of resistance. And so if tomorrow we see volume start to pump into the stock, there's two things that will happen. One is we'll break above this big resistance point, and we'll break out of this sideways consolidation. Until we break out above that June high, the high on June 8th, we're still in this sideways consolidation, and we could potentially break back lower and continue to go sideways. If we start seeing big volume come in, the first price point we're going to want to look at is, let me zoom out. So we need to break above 34.38 to go higher tomorrow, and the next resistance is at 37.91, which is an 11% upside. And ironically so, we also see that the 100-day simple moving average is basically at that trend line as well. So with having both the SMA and a big area of resistance at the same point, there's going to be quite a big of resistance there. So that's going to be my first price target. And I would say tomorrow is probably going to be as high as that gets. I can't imagine it moving more than 11% tomorrow, but that will continue the upward momentum for this stock. If we see that positive momentum, there's just so many indicators. We have back testing this trend line, which is going to be an important part to eventually break out above. When we actually do some more charting, I'm going to do this on the fly actually, what we see is when we broke below this trend line before, we saw a back test here and it failed. And so what I can see in the future is we're going to back test this second trend line, and what we're going to eventually need is we're going to need to break out above that trend line for more long-term success for this stock. If we continue to see momentum, I'm going to draw a quick line here. If we continue to see positive momentum for this stock, I imagine we'll see something like this. We're going to have to form another trend line. So if we draw this other trend line that could be forming, it's going to look something like this. And so I think if we see that start to form, we might see something like this. It might come all the way back here. If it does, that could be a positive because it helps us reset the RSI a little bit. The RSI is getting close to the overbought range, and we need that to cool off if we want more upside in the long term. And so that's something that you're going to want to be looking at. Is we want to see, first we want to see it come up and test this area, and then we want to see it reset a little bit, maybe move sideways and eventually break up. If we eventually break up, the next point of resistance, and this is another big one, is the gap fill. So we have a gap fill at 41.95, which is a 23% upside. Unless we get like astronomical volume tomorrow, we're most likely not going to hit 42, that gap fill in the short term. We're probably going to need a little consolidation. If we do somehow get massive volume and the stock moves 23% tomorrow, it's going to need a big pullback after that and kind of reset these trend lines. If we somehow over the long term break that gap fill and continue to move up, which I think is most likely not realistic for this stock, we do have the next resistance at $48. And so when we look back, I'm drawing here. If we look back at the past prices, this is where we see the resistance. So we have a gap fill resistance, and then right above that at $48, we have two big area of consolidation. So that's the bull case. Tomorrow, if we don't see volume come in, it's going to be difficult for this stock to break out above because there is so much resistance at that 30.42 level. Or sorry, wrong, at 34.38 level. If we do see it come back down, the first area resistance, if we zoom in, is right here at these candles. We see a lot of accumulation, and in the past it tried to break out and failed multiple times. And so we're going to look back for a test, and that is at 31.48, which is 8% downside. So at this point you have to start managing your risk. Are you willing to risk 11% upside for potential 8% downside? For me, that's not really a risk I would want to take. So in my opinion, I would look for a breakout, something like this. I would look for a breakout tomorrow, a retest of the breakout, and then for more upside. I would say if we don't see something like that, there is a possibility that the stock fails tomorrow and comes back and tests that, what is the price? My little thing is blocking, 31.48. If we do come back, we do have a secondary resistance point, which is at 30.41, which is at 11% downside. So in the short term, I say we have somewhere of 11% upside and max 11% downside over the next couple days if we don't get massive volume tomorrow. For the bear case, if we see the price break below 28.47, which is this area right here, let me draw around it. If we break below this more recent low, in this area of consolidation, then I would say the bull run or the move upwards is probably over for this stock, because we break below this support, we also break below this new trend line, and there's a probability that we can come back and test this $19 range. So that's a really quick synopsis and technical analysis of Plug. I want to know what you think. Do you think that will, tomorrow we'll break out of the 30.41 range the 34 range and actually go to that $37 point or $38 point? And do you think we're actually going to get to the gap fill and go up even further? I would love to know your thoughts. Tell me if there's anything else you found in the technicals. I would love to know that as well. So thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe. These are daily videos that I'll be putting out about some of the most popular stocks in the market. So hopefully I see you again soon.